Hello everyone, my name is Michael and I'm speaking to you from the verse. Now if you're not sure what the verse is, I encourage you to go to my website at rewritingtheverse.com, and that's where you can find out all about the verse. All the YouTube videos are on there that you can peruse through, and there's also a few written updates on there as well. This channel's actually been going approximately a year now. I'm just realizing that as I'm speaking. So there's quite a few videos, I believe over 60 videos that you could review at this point. And wow, what a year it's been. But I'm not going to reminisce over the last year, even though I'm very present to that right now. I'm actually here to speak about the 9/22/2020 Equinox portal. It is another portal, Ascension portal, and that's what this video will be concentrated on. I am a past life regressionist and rewriter, which means I'm able to go back, see whatever it is I need to see and understand in a timeline, and then if it's warranted, I am able to go back and alter the outcome so that it has a higher level vibrational outcome. And I have been guided this last year to utilize this gift, specifically with twin flame and divine masculine, divine feminine timelines, and to use them linked with ascension portals. So that's what this is going to be today. This full-length video will go into detail about a past life regression that I've already begun. I've already seen the basic outline of it, and I will share those details with you. And then at the end, I've waited to rewrite the actual outcome live with you here on this video. I find that it seems to have a lot more power when I do it with you together, and we find out together exactly how not only does it impact the people involved in the past life regression, but also many of the times it's connected to what is happening today and impacting the planet today. So there have been some events in the last 24 hours that I'm aware of that are connected with this, and oh my goodness, wow, that's Sasha back there. She, I don't think, has ever jumped on the video before, and so it looks like she's gonna check out that couch while we're talking, so I'll try not to be distracted by her. So that's my little girl. See, I'm already distracted. Where were we? Oh yes, there were events in the last 24 hours that are connected with this, and I'll go ahead and tell you what that is so that you can get a sense of where this past life regression is maybe headed towards in the rewrite. So yesterday was, let me make sure I get the dates right. I believe yesterday was 9/18, and I had actually gone to visit my friend Arcana Star, who I do mention on my website. So again, if you go there, you can check her out. Anyway, I was visiting with her, and we were, I had shared with her that I had begun this 9/22/2020 Equinox portal past life regression. I hadn't finished it yet, but I had gotten part way through, and had talked to her about this timeline will run across some people from history that are written about in history, and the information that I had found out about that. I hadn't completed it yet, but when I found out that Ruth Ginsburg had passed away last night, I didn't find out until maybe around 10 p.m. or so Central Time here in the US, that I realized that the past life regression I had already begun was going to actually be linked to the Supreme Court. So just, you have to take my word for it apparently, because I'm recording this today and saying that I didn't know about what was going to happen with her until after I'd already had the initial past life regression come through. So I do believe in perfect timing, and that it must be coming through now, because, well, most likely we're going to be experiencing something similar, or something connected, basically. And we'll go into details and you'll see why. But anyway, that did happen yesterday. So there's a lot of mourning right now. for her, appreciation for everything that she's done being a civil servant. And she represented a lot for women and just standing for the minorities in a lot of the circumstances. So she will be missed. And whoever comes in behind her, I'm going to declare right now that whatever happens in this video and how it's rewritten is going to influence who they choose to succeed her. And well, I hope it will be a positive twist in the storyline. However that looks on the surface, I don't know. I have no idea who they're going to consider at this point. But I do believe we're going to shift something tonight that will help get hopefully the right person into that position next. So anyway, that's what's going on. So let's go ahead and start the past life regression. And again, I've already done it, so I'm going to be reporting the details to you now. And at the end, I'll let you know when we actually begin the rewriting part. And that's the part that hasn't been changed or hasn't been rewritten yet. And we'll see what happens together. Okay? So I was, first thing I do when I look down, or I ask for the guides to show me a timeline. Again, this is a twin flame or divine counterpart related timeline. I asked them how far back are we going to be looking, and they said, at first they said 200 years, and then they added another 10, so 200, or 210 years ago. I think they don't normally, usually 200 would have been enough. The fact that they gave me a little bit more specific, okay, something more specific, there we go. They could be saying there's a 10-year window here, but basically, either way, that's around the time between around 1810 and in that time range. So yeah. Well, 1810 I'm sorry. Anyway, it's about 200 years ago. Let's round it off. See, that's why I don't normally get more details than a rounded off number, because then it starts to confuse things. So give that 10 years either way or something like that, okay? All right. So the first thing I see then, and I don't remember how it came through, if I just told me it was Kentucky, I'm not sure, but it was Kentucky that I was seeing. And the first thing I see is a young man on a horse, and he's facing the other direction, but I can tell by his build and whatever, he's probably young. He's got a loose white shirt on and some, brown basic pants. He's got his hair pulled back. His hair is either light brown or blonde. It's pulled back in a little ponytail. That's pretty much it. That's what I see when it opens up. That's what I see. And he's riding a horse at a normal pace. And he comes up to this really big, I'm going to call it like a plantation house, okay? At first I thought, well, hold on, that looks like a plantation house, and that's not the South. And then I thought, okay, hold on, in my mind, it's up here above the Mason-Dixon line, and I'm not even sure exactly where that is. But I'm like, well, actually, Kentucky would have been considered the South, even in the Civil War days. So, okay, I just went with it. Because that's what it looked like to me. Like a plantation type of house, large, had pillars in the front. It was red. And so when he came up on his horse next to the front steps, there was a butler or somebody like that. Anyway, he came out and took the reins of his horse, and he walked up and in. And what I understood was this was his uncle's house, and he had been invited up. He apparently worked with the horses, and even though, again, relatives, he and his mother, who was the uncle's sister, he and his mother lived down pretty much a shack down where the horse paddocks were. And that, even though it was a plantation, I didn't see any crops. What I believed, I felt it was that it was pretty much like a horse, I don't know, a ranch, but like where they definitely had like purebreds. And this must have been early, you know, Kentucky Derby type of horses. I really felt they were very specialized, well taken care of, and you had to be wealthy to have them. And the uncle had a lot of them. So my understanding as far as the background of how he got there, he lived with his mother and father up until, well, let's say the young man was probably in his late teens. And his father had passed away at least a few years earlier. So out of basically survival, they had to approach the uncle as for an opportunity to stay somewhere. And the only option he gave them was to work the horses, and I think the mother did other things too, but it was work. It was definitely, they weren't allowed to stay up in the big house or anything like that. They were servants. They were definitely servants. And you know, as far as, oh, by the way, the young man's name is William. Yeah, he actually didn't mind tending the horses. He really enjoyed the horses and was a good rider and trainer. So it really wasn't that much of a hardship for him. But he knows that his mother, well, they were used to a better lifestyle. They might not have been as rich as the uncle, but they definitely had enough money for them to live in town and just have more. And he did have a decent education leading up to the death of his father, and you know, but at this point, this is how they came to live there, how they came to live in the conditions they are at the uncle's house. And so he's been called to the big house to talk to the uncle. That's why he's there. So I see them sitting in a very large, ornate room, and the uncle, there's no, just because they're related does not mean there's any special kind of bond with anybody, at least between him and his mother and the front building, or the front house, people that lived there. Yeah, he had cousins there and whatever, but nobody, he was just a servant in their eyes. So the uncle had a proposition, and that's putting it nicely because it really was a demand, but he was trying to, anyway, here's what his demand was. So the uncle had plenty of money. That was very clear. He had plenty of money and a lot of influence in a lot of ways, but he did not have political power or influence. And he wanted this very much. That was the one area he wanted to get into, that he, you know, basically if you weren't married or related to somebody that was already in that arena, it was really hard to become somebody known in the political world. And so a cousin, like kind of a 3 or 4 distant cousin, whatever, was traveling up. He and his family were going to travel up to this area because apparently, at least maybe every few years or something, the family is connected to politics, meet in this one area. They talk politics for sure, especially the men. They have their meetings and whatever, and they usually last for maybe a week or so. But there's also the opportunity for socializing between those families and also meeting, you know, for the young people, prospective future spouses. And so William's uncle was extremely excited about the idea that maybe he could get William to marry into one of these families, specifically the cousins that are going to come up. And once again, this had nothing to do with William or what success he may have. This is all about the uncle wanting to worm his way in to get power in the political arena. So he proposed it, but again, it was not really, it was a demand. It was a demand that there was the oldest daughter of the family that was coming up, and they were going to stay with them for that week. At least the women were, anyway, and definitely going to attend. There's usually a big soiree, is what I was given. I don't know how big a soiree normally is, but I would say like a ball. where again, especially the young people can meet each other and start looking at who might be good to pair off with who. And believe me, even back then, it was not about love for the most part. It was about who was going to be able to work their way up the social ladder. And there was the opportunity with this family coming up that they were related to, that the oldest daughter was definitely ready to marry. That family had connections with politics, so therefore this was going to benefit the uncle. That's all he cared about. And I could tell you immediately that William didn't like this idea. He didn't want to marry somebody he didn't even know. I mean, they're just like, what? He never saw himself in the political arena anyway for himself, although the idea of, getting out there and doing something more than being a horse trainer was always on his mind. He always wanted to do something more, but with no money, he wasn't sure what he was going to be able to create. And he also felt responsible for his mother, that if he wasn't taking care of her, the uncle sure wasn't going to. So at this point, they were lucky that they were living there at all. So he put a lot of pressure on William to accept this idea that whoever this cousin was that was coming through, that he was, in her time there, he was to impress her, maybe start some courting if at all possible. But basically, by the time they're done there needs to be like a marriage plan. Like, it was that important that this opportunity not slip away, especially when she was going to go to a soiree and there was going to be other people possibly interested in her. It was his job to make sure he got married into that family. And yeah, whatever it took to get him in there is what he was needed to do. And I get, it may not have been offered at first, but eventually it will be a part of the deal that his college is paid for if he does this. So I'm not sure if it's then or if it's later to sweeten the deal, but that's ultimately gets thrown in as his college will be paid for if he does this. Okay. And he would definitely need that if he was going to impress anybody, that he was at least planning on going to college. So William tells his mother about this plan, that he's not happy with his plan at all, but Mom is all about it. Mom sees, well, what came to mind right now is dollar signs. Now, I know that her livelihood depends on his livelihood. She knows that she can't make it on her own, and if her son leaves, there's no way the uncle's going to allow her to stay there. So she's really thinking about herself throughout all of this. I don't get that there's much, oh, you poor thing, yeah, you might have to marry somebody you don't love, or whatever. But in her mind, it was all about her, and she supported anything that was going to get more for her. So she was very much pushing the storyline as well. So eventually, the family does come, and he is ordered by the uncle that anytime he comes up to the big house or has any interactions with that family, he needs to be clean, so not smelling like the horses, and they don't need to know that he works down with the horses. We don't want him to know that. So when he comes for dinner that first night, they're already there. He's all dressed to the T's, and of course those weren't his clothes. They had to buy those clothes or get it from somebody else. I mean, even the butlers dressed better than him, so maybe they got it from the butlers. But either way, he dressed nice and came, and he was a handsome young man. So as far as looks go, he had something to work with there. But the girl, the girl that he came to impress, I can't find a nice word. Well, I'll just say she was a biatch. Okay, let's just call a spade a spade. This girl, very, very into herself, and walked as if she was the Queen of England already. And her intention was to be like, at some point in time, she literally said she wanted to be the first lady. Like, eventually, whoever she was going to be with end up being at that level, the president or whatever. Excuse me, I need a drink of water. See, I started coughing when I talked about her. So she just walked around like she owned the place. And the parents were nice enough, but they definitely gave in to her attitude and oh, great, I'm gonna be coughing here. Because I don't want that to happen. I don't know how to edit. I don't want to edit. But okay. So they were nice people, but boy, did they have a daughter that. And then there was another young lady at the table who was dressed nicely, but wasn't as audacious as the young lady was. And at first he thought she was actually a servant or something. Just the way that the daughter talked to her and ordered her around. So basically that first night he was very put off by this lady and thinking, this is too much, basically. There's no way I can marry that. It was clear from the beginning that whatever love possibilities were never going to happen with her. But he kept playing the charade, especially because the uncle continued to basically stare him down and make sure he was doing what he was told to do, which was to try to impress this young lady, spend some time with her, and whatever. You need to be marrying this woman. So anyway, he still intended to carry on for now, at least. It wasn't until the next day. He was down with the horses, cleaning out the stalls, doing all that lovely work down there. And then all of a sudden, there's the girl that, again, he assumed was a servant or something. And this one, it wasn't until now that he actually finds out this is the girl's sister. And she's a couple years younger than her sister. This is her sister. and she's much nicer. In fact, she's like the opposite. She's really nice. And she's personable, and she's comfortable with the horses. In fact, she says, they have horses too wherever they live. And yeah, she loves the horses. We wanted to go for a ride, and he's like, well, okay. Now at this point, I'm not sure if she figures out why is he, cleaning the stalls, or I'm sorry. I don't even have any cough drops here. So this needs to stop. So anyway, this one's much more personable. This one likes to ride, and so does he, so they go out on a ride together. At some point, I think he either just confesses or she just figures it out that he's actually doing stuff that if he was living in the big house, there's no way he would be shoveling crap out of the stalls. So, but it didn't bother her. This scenario, okay, yeah, he's still related and whatever. He's just obviously not living the same lifestyle. It didn't matter to her, basically. They liked each other, and they ran out and, rode the horses several days that week, and really were getting to know each other. And again, yes, he did have to take the other one out, walk around with her, but because it was nice to have chaperone. Usually the daughter ended up being the chaperone anyway. The other daughter ended up being the chaperone anyway, so they'd still get to have some time together. But he had to still pretend like he liked the other person to a certain degree. So he was actually falling in love with the younger sister during this week, which was making this even harder than it already was. Because by the end of the week, he's going to have to make some serious decisions here about whether or not he's going to follow through with what his uncle was demanding or what. And his mother, like I said, that Mother really put a lot of pressure on him too. But again, I wish it was because she was wanting the best for him, but no, I'm getting most of it was about her. So what I got is he did end up crumbling. I don't know, crumbling, but he decided to go with the pressure point. And I really got that the big selling point was that they were willing to pay for him to go to college. Now it's the uncle that had offered at some point in that week to sweeten the deal that they will pay for him to go to college because it's pretty obviously if he has no education or nothing beyond high school or whatever, he's going to have a hard time impressing people. So he definitely needs to be able to tell them that he's going to college. And one of the things that was very prestigious, which is still prestigious now, is becoming a lawyer. And a lawyer was definitely one of the ways into the White House even. So that was the piece that he saw as the biggest carrot for him to take the plunge, deal with a cranky wife, but you know, he can get out there and do something in the world. And so despite him having feelings for the sister, he chose Cranky Pants. That's what I want to call her. Because she was. So anyway, that was a sacrifice. I really get, even, I think me coughing, that started when we started talking about her. Yeah. So that's how we felt about her. But I'm sure, you know, in going to school or once you get into your career, it's a lot easier, you know, hey, I'm working late. I'm not even saying he was cheating on her. I just think he would avoid her a lot. But so this is about as far as I got in the past life regression at first. Remember I said I got part of it ahead of time, and then today I got more of it. This is about how far I got yesterday, knowing that he was being pressured specifically because of politics, because the uncle wanted in on the politics and this was his way. He believed he'd be able to get himself very much into that, which I don't get that he really got much of anything. More power or anything that he already had. But of course, now William is online to become a lawyer, which will be a natural opportunity to get into politics. So, so once I got some of these pieces, I thought, okay, I know that he's being groomed to be into politics. And when I think politics, I think, you know, like senator on up, right? Maybe even president kind of thing. But so for whatever reason, I thought he was pretty young, that if he did become a congressman or a senator, for whatever reason, I just decided to look up online last night or yesterday, whenever, the youngest senator. Who was the youngest senator in history? Pretty much is what I put in. And what it showed was that there was a senator from Tennessee. I don't remember the exact years, but basically early 1800. He was a senator, and he was the youngest senator. And one of the weird things about it, on top of him being the youngest, is that he was actually 29 and a half or something like that when he was voted in. And the rule was you had to be 30 plus. So, you know, did they know ahead of time, or was it just a boo-boo that they voted him in too soon? Whatever. But his name was John Eaton. He was a senator from Tennessee. Okay. That wasn't the person I was looking for anyway, because the person I'm looking for is from Kentucky. Okay? So I think I looked at the list of youngest ones, just again, because I felt like the young part was going to help me single them out. If there was somebody specific that had been there, he would probably show up. And sure enough, I'm looking down the list. I can't remember how many people were ahead of it, but not that many. And there's a senator from Kentucky. Okay, well, that's cool. Yes, it's the time frame that I'm looking at. And his name is William. And when I saw the name, I'm like, uh-huh. Uh-huh. So I look up, his name is William Taylor Barry, B-A-R-R-Y. So I looked him up. Yeah, he's from Kentucky. It was around that time period that I was looking at. He was a senator among several other offices, including being in the cabinet under Andrew Jackson in later years. Once Andrew Jackson was president, he was one of his cabinet members. And he's connected in somehow to this story, or let's call it a scandal, connected to John Eaton. These are the kind of things that make me go, okay, I'm not making this stuff up. Why did I already know that name? I didn't know either of these guys even existed until yesterday, right? Because I'm not that big of a history buff. But anyway, so I'll tell you a little bit more. Yeah, because those two are intimately connected. They do meet at some point. He and John, William and John, do meet at some point. And later, like 20 years later or whatever, is when they're cabinet members under Andrew Jackson, and there's a scandal. And the scandal was that somebody named Peggy O'Neill married John Eaton. And it was scandalous from the beginning. He was already in the cabinet, I believe, and he married this woman. I think they both had exes or whatever. He marries this woman 9 months after her husband dies, which apparently is too short of a time to be mourning for the woman, at least. And so it's just, oh my goodness, it's such a scandal that she would marry somebody so quickly, which gives rise to, did they plan this all along? Did they already know each other? Were they cheating already? And it was actually the women connected to the cabinet members, Congress members. I mean, that's all over the Women's Society, connected to those senators and cabinet members and everything. Absolutely couldn't stand Peggy. Well, she didn't come from, highfalutin family or whatever. In fact, she grew up, I think her parents owned some sort of a pub or tavern or some sort of place like that, where a lot of men, especially connected to Congress and the government, frequented there a lot. So from a young child, apparently she was exposed to, this kind of clientele, I guess. And well, so anyway, she was certainly not the typical. So from the very beginning, these women had it in, or had it out, had it in, whatever, for Peggy. And then by virtue of that, being out for John. So ultimately, they influenced at least all the cabinet members, resigned, I guess, their positions. All of them, except for one, who was William Taylor Barry. He's the only one that didn't resign, including John Eaton. John actually resigned too, apparently as an attempt to try to just sweep this all under the rug, but everybody else left the cabinet. So here are these two people that, again, I did not look up together, knowing that there was any connection there, and there, boom, the universe shows me this very deep connection between them all. So I wanted to share that with you just as an example of that these two senators are connected, absolutely connected. Even though they didn't start that way, I don't think they knew each other until, I'm going to guess, at least college and above, because they were both lawyers. Maybe they ran in that circle together. So I told you all that. Let me see, let me back up now because that was jumping quite a bit ahead. Anyway, yeah, John and William were both lawyers, and they knew each other, especially I think since the 1812 War of 1812. And I think that's how, at least for sure, John got connected with Andrew Jackson during that campaign. And at some point, William did too, whether it was through Eaton or that they just independently got drawn into that campaign and were connected to Andrew Jackson ever since, it sounds like. So, in the end, there's not a big eventful situation. I guess maybe that scandal might have actually been, to some degree, a big thing that happened. Obviously, it affected people's futures, their careers. I think I read even that people speculated it might have actually helped Martin Van Buren's candidacy run. But that's speculation anyway, and I really don't know how that, but I'm sure it impacted people's political futures. Okay. So a lot of times in these past life regressions, there is some big moments, some got stuck and or something horrible happens. No, I don't get that. But what I get is neither one of these men, yeah, they were in the cabinet and everything else, but they ultimately did not serve their highest level good. And that especially became obvious once I realized the Supreme Court issue that came up. And I just realized that there were other aspirations and other options career-wise that not just William could have taken, but also John possibly. Not really clear how this is going to unfold for John because he, oh, actually, by the way, let me talk about, this is a twin flame past life regression. Only, and this is true in a lot of cases, not all twin flames are romantic or even related. You know, some people can be brother, sister, whatever. No, it's actually William and John, I believe, that are twin flames in this. Now, theirs might have been more of a coming together of, purpose. I don't necessarily get a romantic bond there between them, which of course could happen, but I'm not getting that. But do I get that they must have had a strong enough bond to be, yes, they were pulled to a similar purpose. They really were running kind of side by side in their careers. And I really get that for for William not to step down from the cabinetry was a big deal. That was basically like, well, standing up to everybody else, basically. The only other person that supported John was Andrew Jackson. So I really got that was just him standing up for his friends. He did know Peggy as well. So, standing up for both of them maybe. But ultimately, he took a big risk by not stepping down. So you don't do that for just anybody, okay? Most people, even if they were your buddy, if it was going to negatively impact their political future or their careers, well, they'll do whatever it takes, unfortunately. Well, he didn't, and he took a risk by standing up for his friends. So there had to be something deeper there, a strong friendship connecting them together throughout their careers. And so whatever happens with William is going to impact John. Whatever's going to happen here in this rewrite, it's going to impact the other because these are our twin flames. Okay? Okay. So this is where I'm not sure what's going to happen because we're going to go back to the original arrangement of him marrying that lady. And whatever needs to change there, they told me basically where we're going to intervene at. But once that changes, once that's starting to be explored, what's going to happen, on that new timeline, even I'm not sure how it's going to impact things. So, okay, they're telling me to tell you one more thing before we get started with that. So, there was actually not a whole lot written about William or John, really, in the vast scale of things. They weren't that big of players. But it did mention that William had connections with James Madison, the president, one or two people before Andrew Jackson finally got into office. So, and this was right around the time when he first really started paying attention. What I understand, what I was shown is that in 1801, a case was brought to the Supreme Court. And I feel like I need to tell you that the Supreme Court had only been in existence, I can't remember if it was 87. I'm going to lean towards 87. It was either 87 or 95. 1787 or 1795. I forgot the date now, but it's still fairly young Supreme Court. In fact, there were only 4 of them originally, at least in 1801, there was only 4. And what was happening with that was, it was, see if I can remember how it was spelled, Mabry, M-A-U-B-R-Y, I think, if I'm remembering it right, versus Madison. So the President of the United States was being sued by somebody. And what he was suing about was, at that time, apparently, the government was putting out just really trying to produce a lot of judges, trying to create a lot of the judicial system, I guess, in that time span, trying to expand things, something. And Mabry was one of the people that was being looked at to be placed as a judge somewhere. And this is, I really know the bare minimum of what they mentioned, but basically Madison didn't want him to be in that position, so he was trying to block that from happening. And I think it had to do with the idea that John Madison or something was stepping out. I can't remember. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe, forgive me if I have some of the years wrong. Okay. Trying to think. I'm pretty sure that Madison is already president at this point. But whatever the case, it is Madison who will be president at some point if he's not already. So this is brought to the Supreme Court. Mabry is suing Madison for blocking his placement, I guess. But it had to do with the president, a new president coming on within a month or two, within the future window, and trying to block it because of that, which, notice we've got an election coming up right now, in the next couple months. And with Ginsburg going down yesterday, we're in this energy right now. Unfortunately, the mourning for Ruth is going to be brief because this is just going to be a free-for-all to try to get somebody in before the election. And I feel that it's a very similar energy to what was going on right back then. In 1801 is when at least they started to see the case, but it wasn't, they didn't make their final decision until like 2 years later. And here's the decision. Well, they said, well, Mabry, whatever you're bringing to the table is unconstitutional, okay? And Madison, what you're doing is illegal. And in the midst of that, there's something called the judicial review, which still, I guess, exists today. That was their decision. And my very basic understanding of that is that they decided that they could make the final decision. Anything legislature, Congress, or representatives, whatever, anything executive, they would get to decide if it was legal, if it was constitutional. So in effect, what I get from this, and I could be wrong because I certainly don't know anything about law, but my interpretation is they basically made themselves gods. That when it comes down to it, they will be the final voice and decision makers. When I looked up some of the biggest decisions made by the Supreme Court at any point in time, that was the number one, first big one that was referenced. So, a very pivotal point in the Supreme Court that I believe is still in place. I don't think that's ever been changed. Now, I can't say whether that was a good idea or not, but they're telling me that was not a good idea. The idea itself might have been okay, but it has been used. It's been used. The whole checks and balances thing, that you learn in History 101 about our government, or government anyway, it's a bunch of phooey. It is. If anyone watches anything, even the watered down whatever stuff you see on mainstream TV, if you can't see the manipulation, if you can't see the you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, then you need glasses. You want to borrow mine? Yeah. I think it's as obvious as it can be. But that decision in the Supreme Court in 1803 has set the court to be just another, that's what I got, is then it became open for even more corruption than there might have already been. Okay? I mean, even look now. The public doesn't vote in Supreme Court justices. They have life terms. That's not in any other position out there. Why is the Supreme Court so different? Well, you don't want a lot of change going on if there's something that you want to control long term. So basically, whoever's running the House, or whatever the legislation and or even the presidency, they get to dictate how things go. And to me, okay, well, that's happening because it's corrupt. But if it really is meant to be a checks and balances, then it should be independent of the two sources that it is managing. Wouldn't that make sense? So there's something fundamentally off about what was put in place back in 1803, is what I got. Okay. And William would have, I don't know about John, and they didn't really necessarily know each other at that point, or maybe they did, but what I'm clear about is that William would have been very interested in what was happening, especially since he would have been, right out of college and very much establishing himself as a lawyer. He would have been paying attention to these things. And at some point in time, he and James Madison do communicate. It may have been way past that point, but he does have a connection with him. And what I saw, he may needed to have been connected to a different president than what he ended up being connected to in the first one. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Because we're at the point, I feel like I needed to give you the background so that you know how James Madison fits into this a bit. Oh, one more thing about James Madison. He was a judge. Among other things, other offices, he was a judge. So he did have, an understanding about the judicial system. Andrew Jackson, I don't know if I guess he was a general of some sort, colonel, general, whatever he had more of the war experience to back up him being in such a high position. But no, I believe Madison was the one that had more of the judicial understanding, and that is what I get. That may have been a better fit for William. So now we're going to go back, because this is basically what they've shown me, maybe the direction he would be better to serve in. But now we actually ultimately need to get back to the original conversation, and it is connected to him marrying that other daughter. But look at my little girl back there. She's really exploring. I'm sorry, she just has never been this visible during my sessions before. Only one or two other times that she's been seen at all. And she is really exploring back there. So, in fact, I haven't been paying attention to her the whole time, so I'm not sure exactly what she's been doing back there. But anyway, I'll be watching this, and then I'll get to see what I missed. So, anyway. Okay, going back. So we know that whole week of him and the sisters and him having more feelings for the other one. And that was the only, well, there were lots of things about that decisions were needing to be made. Selling his soul to the devil by marrying that sister. And again, no, we do know that the carrot of somebody paying for him to go to college was probably the biggest selling point for him. But his heart really was with the other one. So what I got was in the first one, the first version, he never really talked too much directly to the daughter's parents, family, father. Everything was negotiated through the uncle. And so it's now at the point I get where William is having to make a choice, and ultimately what he wants to go to college, he wants to, be able to further himself. And again, law might have been something he was interested in. But he also wanted to marry the other sister. And how is he going to be able to do this? Because his uncle absolutely wants him to marry the older one. The older one is the one that's focused on being like a politician's wife, just a real go-getter in that level. And he's clear he wants her to be the one that he marries. The decision that will change things in some way will be for him to approach the daughter's father. He needs to sidestep the uncle. The uncle is not negotiating anything for his benefit. It's all what the uncle thinks will further himself. And of course the mom, we know his mom is also just really thinking of herself. So he knows he's taking a chance, because if this blows up, he goes to the other uncle, who knows what's going to happen. But I really get that he was torn about her. He wanted to marry her. So that's what changes. He makes his way to the other father, who is actually very approachable. He's a nice guy. He seems to be anyway. But you never know when you get people off to the sides. Who knows? It could have been ruthless. Who knows? But and remember, in the first version, the uncle paid for him to go to college. And well, he knew if he wasn't marrying that oldest daughter, that was probably going to be off the table too. So he was taking a chance of losing pretty much everything, probably. But he was following his heart. And his heart did say, I love this lady. So he went to the other daughter's father. Very nice guy. He did turn out to be a really nice guy, even behind closed doors. And yes, he was hoping to marry off his oldest daughter first, and that's where he wanted the focus to be on this trip. However, there were other people that were showing some interest in her at the soiree. So it wasn't all riding on him. But the guy was a romantic. And if his youngest daughter was going to be happy, then why not? Why not? And he was willing to pay for William to go to college. And yes, I see him still pursuing law as well. So this is where this change is what's going to open up. Now, I haven't formally changed it yet. My goodness. She comes in this room all the time. There must be something going on in this room energetically, because, well, she comes in here, but she doesn't climb on things. I can't believe it. She's just a little explorer tonight. So, okay. So he's made this agreement without his uncle having anything to say about it, that yes, he's going to marry the daughter. He and his mother will move to wherever they're at. And yes, he's going to go to college, and law is what he wants to practice. So, we see now, the uncle's still furious, okay? Even though he's going to get his wish as far as he's going to have his nephew be married into this family. But there was something about that oldest one, I don't know. He just felt like she would be the best one to probably be a presidential wife. But I really get, again, it was never about William making it to the top, though. I just think the uncle was going to ride his coattails in to where he could get connected on his own to people, and then he could care less what happens to his nephew. But that biatch of a sister, he saw that as his best bet, her as his best bet to get in. Whatever. He was mad. And if he had any, leverage left, he would have thrown them out, him and his mother, for his absolute disrespect of going around his back to directly to the other father. But it didn't matter, because they left. Here's what I'm getting. Okay, here's how it's unfolding with this new choice. They leave with them. And I mean, as far as the other sister goes, she didn't care anyway. She really didn't like him that much, and she had a few other people that looked at her. So whatever happened, I really get that she doesn't go much of anywhere politically, because she's a bitch. If she'd had any personality whatsoever that was agreeable, she might have actually been able to be in some sort of society. But no. She, if anything, was a handicap in that first version. But anyway, this time he marries the other daughter. He goes to college. What else? Goes to college. I get that he graduates. I want to say faster. And based on what I saw timeline-wise, he graduated very, very fast. To be able to actually be an attorney pretty quickly, a lawyer. I guess there's a difference, lawyer. He was a lawyer. But anyway, so he got in and got through the process of becoming a lawyer pretty quickly still. I just get a different level of freedom for him. He still had his, especially when Uncle pays for his college. You don't think he didn't use that in every way he could to manipulate him and put pressure on him to make certain decisions? I get a whole nother level of just relaxation and ability to follow what is interesting to him. And I really get, the James Madison. Whether, again, it might have just been that that big decision that was being made. What I'm getting is during that, I believe it was during that time, while that was going on, that particular case was going on with the Supreme Court, he had some sort of communication, or might have even met him, with James Madison, discussing the case, what his concerns were. there was a connection that happened surrounding that case. That's what I feel very strongly. He reached out in some way. And what I'm wondering is if in any way he actually changes the outcome of that right then and there. So let me, because I'm feeling a lot of energy on this. Because obviously if Madison has a history, he might have, who knows, he might have even defended himself if he was a judge before, or maybe had an attorney, but either way, he knows a lot about the system. William is the one pointing out the flaw in whatever's happening. Not maybe even the flaw in how Madison was even presenting the case. I don't know, but what is this? This may be where he actually makes the difference right here. Because if that never gets put in place, that judicial review order or decision never gets placed, or it gets placed but different wording or something, this seems to be where the main point is. This is what's going to change history. What I'm being told, and I'm not sure how this unfolds, but what I'm being told is he will William will become a Supreme Court justice. And grant, he's only a lawyer, and a young lawyer at that, but there's something, my goodness, okay, here's what I'm getting. He's not a judge, so he can't make the impact in that moment on the Supreme Court as you know, that he would if he was farther down the line and was a judge and had all these things. In fact, had he been a judge right then, he probably would have been one that would have been considered to be placed, that was behind all of this particular lawsuit anyway. But Madison can. Maybe Madison even understood in that moment what was happening and how the Supreme Court was then going to be manipulated. I get whatever it is, William is communicating and actually helping him with this case. Giving him at least some suggestions or what he sees that might be a flaw. Something about this is going to block or force them to rewrite the judicial review decision. One thing I read about all of this was that there's nothing about a Supreme Court or judicial body in the Constitution. They're saying, whoever I read, I have no idea, they basically said it's an implied thing that you need to have a judicial body. So the Supreme Court is not constitutionally based. Wow. And I think not saying we don't need law. I think we need somebody to keep people accountable. But that's only if they actually do that and they don't misuse this power that isn't even written in the Constitution. So somehow this, I believe, is the point that William is telling him he needs to focus on. So I don't even think it was about whether or not he did something illegal, you know. Maybe it was considered illegal if it went against whatever the judicial review was going to support. Who knows? Maybe, I don't know. Didn't go into details. I don't need to know them because, again, I'm not a lawyer. But I do feel like that's the key component. That not only are they, I'm getting, not saying this is my belief, I'm getting this from elsewhere, that at least at that time, the Supreme Court was made up. That's what I'm getting. It was a made up organization. It was a made up whatever that had no constitutional backing of its own. Therefore, how could it make decisions about the Constitution? About any of it? What gave them the power? So, something about that. That somehow this case birthed this God-like entity into existence. Might have even been a little pre-planned, don't you think? Seems a little odd to come up with that decision from what was brought to the table. Wow. Now, my head's swimming because it's, even though we haven't formally put it in place right yet, yeah. But I am getting that that William will become a Supreme Court justice. And eventually, you know, they started with 4, at least at the time that that case was being heard, there were only 4 justices. And eventually it gets to a higher number and whatever, it goes back and forth over time, but eventually it will grow. So he will become, and he may be nominated by Madison. In fact, I think that's the case. Whether he's actually actively the president at the time or later, he will become a Supreme Court Supreme Court justice. Well, who knows? Could be president later too, because anything can happen, right? But anyway, let's say Supreme Court justice for now. And he does have a friend named John Eaton. And who also was a lawyer. Now the question is he going to become I'm getting yes, he'll become some sort of he'll become a Supreme Court justice as well, but he'll play a vital role, both of them play a vital role in whatever was wrong with the judicial review idea. Not all of it was bad. So it needs to be rewritten or reconstructed, and that both of them author that change so that it could be more than just a made-up entity, where it actually may just be a better fit with the whole Constitution, whatever. I just feel like it's not that the idea of having a Supreme Court, that's not a bad idea, but whatever the structure was that they put in place on that decision has really well, it's been a problem for all the branches of government, because it wasn't set up right. And it definitely was used, is being used for agendas. It's not the people. There's no elections. People are placing people on the court, basically voting for themselves, because if you're dominant, you're going to get who you want to get. That doesn't sound very American, does it? As far as being able to vote, and they have, and life terms. Does anybody ever stop to ask why that needs to happen that way? Or even if president can't be in term more than 8 years, at least in a row. So, yeah. Okay. So, yes, William and John will now be Supreme Court justices, and they are writing, authoring the structures around it. I believe, or I'm getting to ensure that it really is an independent entity. So the fact that it wasn't in the Constitution may actually be a good thing. That it would be independent if you weren't trying to blur and make it all fit into one and manipulate. Okay, so it's time to rewrite this. So there we go. It's flipping back in the early 1800s, way back, almost about 200, like I said, about 210 or so years ago is when this is flipping. And this is making a way bigger splash on the planet as far as how both of these men were able to do what they were really called to do. They got in under the right president. They're able to use their expertise in the judicial system. And I'm getting that it was a 10-year term. That was something that they put in place. 10-year terms. And you couldn't do more than one. They saw the flaw in that, for sure. They could have sat on there forever, or however it was set up back then. But now, definitely could have sat on there for a lifetime. But they knew that needed to be changed even back then. So that's moving through time. Somebody just pushed my chair. Could be Ruth. Whoever succeeds her will be coming in with this new energy. I'm getting tingles on my body too, which is another confirmation. Will be coming in under this new energy, under independence, under freedom, under upholding the Constitution at a whole nother level now that it's not officially connected to the Constitution. Something about it being independent makes them even more, well, I was going to say capable, but that's not it. Makes them even more credible to uphold it. Something about that. If you're not influenced by the Democrats or the Republicans or the Independents or whoever is the current party, then you can choose based on what's true, what's right, what's fair. and what's best for the people. Oh. Sorry, apparently that's a novel idea. So I'm very curious to see who will now be carrying this energy. When I found out that Ginsburg had passed last night, definitely I honored her. Thanked her for so many things, and especially what she did for women, for the minorities, helping keep a certain level of balance, especially when the Republican ideals continue to be pushed right now. She was a voice amongst many that didn't support that. So I'm sorry to see her go. And whoever's going to come in behind her, I believe will honor her passing, for one, and take the torch that she's been holding, and have it shine even brighter, because it's not going to be under that old energy anymore. There's something about this change that will bring balance. It may be one physical person coming in, but they're coming in with a brand new, well, not brand new, it's 200 years old now. A 200-year-old new vibration and intention for the Supreme Court. And it truly now can make choices based on what's true and right, and nothing else. It's not based on who appointed you, not based on whatever your personal beliefs are or your personal political beliefs are. No, you make a choice based on whether it's right or wrong for the people. That's what we need. And yeah, we need it in the other two, legislature and executive as well. But for right now, for today, but I also believe that when you change one part of a system, the rest of the system changes anyway. So this will impact all of the areas of government. Imagine that. Really, really being there for the people, making choices based on what's best for the people instead of what your political aspirations are and who you believe or not. For the people. Again, really novel idea. It's time. It's time for the Constitution to be honored. And a lot of great ideas in there that have been, need to get back to the basics. So, well, that's it, everybody. Wow. We just shifted the entire judicial system, at least in the U.S. Another day at the office. And thanks to my cat for showing up. I'm not quite sure why she wanted to explore so much, but I loved having her here. So, okay, so right after this, I will be recording a short highlights video that will only focus on these end results. And so that link will be attached below. Thank you so much. I realize this was a long one, but hey, when you're changing things on the entire planet or beyond, it might take a little time. I appreciate you all being here. And until next time, peace and joy.